Welcome to the first of a series of screencasts on grid computing brought to you by the Direct User Support Team operating in the context of the EGEE project. During this screencast we will review the basic steps a user needs to complete prior to using the grid, as well as the necessary tools that he or she will need in order to access the grid infrastructure. The three basic steps a user needs to complete prior to using the grid infrastructure are: number 1, acquiring an IGDF approved personal digital certificate, number 2, registering with at least one virtual organization, and number 3, requesting for an account on a grid user interface. A digital certificate is much like an ID, but one that is used over the internet. Grid users use their personal digital certificates in order to authenticate themselves to the grid infrastructure. Digital certificates are signed and then issued by certification authorities. On the grid level, these certification authorities operate on a per-country basis. In order to locate the grid certification authority operating within your country, you will need to visit the EGEE Grid PMA website, which is under www.egeegridpma.org. Here you will find a map of Europe. By clicking on your country, you can browse through the specific details you will need to go through in order to obtain a digital certificate. Once you have obtained a personal digital certificate, the next step you will need to complete prior to using the grid is registering with at least one virtual organization. Virtual organizations are much like organizations, but on the grid level. People are grouped into virtual organizations depending on their scientific field and their research interests. To browse through the grid virtual organizations and locate one that you would be interested in joining, you may visit the CIC Operations portal. This is located under cic.intop3.fr. I will now click on VO information/list. A list of application domains appears. I can now choose the application domain that I am interested in, and now I can browse the available VOs that I am free to register with. I can even browse to their home pages and see which one fits best my needs. Once you've registered with one virtual organization, the last step you will need to complete prior to using the grid is getting an account on a grid user interface. A user interface is simply a machine, but one machine that is equipped with all the necessary software that will allow you to interact with the grid. Thus, you are able through the user interface to submit jobs and retrieve the output data of your jobs. To get an account on a grid user interface, you would normally need to contact your NGI's help desk. NGI stands for National Grid Initiative, and you can browse through the specific details of your country's National Grid Initiative by firstly going through the EGEE knowledge base, which is located under knowledge.eu-egi.eu. Here you can locate your country on the map, and after going through some brief details about your National Grid Initiative, you can even go to their own website and find any contact detail that you will need in order to request for an account on a grid user interface. To access the user interface and through that the grid infrastructure, you will need to use SSH clients. SSH stands for Secure Shell, and it is the protocol used in order to connect to Unix-based servers. During this tutorial, we will quickly go through two such clients, namely Putty and WinSCP. Putty is a free download from www.putty.org. I will click here where I can download Putty, and then I choose to download the putty.exe file. Save file. My download has finished, and by double clicking the Putty configuration management window appears. Under the host name, I type in the host name of the UI that I have been given. I then select Open, leaving all other options to default. I now type in my username and my account password. Notice that as I type in the password, the cursor is not moving. I am now inside the user interface, which is, as already mentioned, a Unix-based machine, and I can now submit jobs to the grid or interact with data management facilities. However, this is a topic of a subsequent screencast, so we will not discuss about this today. So for now, I simply type exit in order to disconnect and close the window. The second tool we will briefly discuss is called WinSCP, and it is a tool used in order to transfer data from the local machine to the user interface and vice versa. Once again, WinSCP is a free download from the internet. The official site is under winscp.net. I select download, and here I select to download the portable, executable and not the installation package. I've been redirected to SourceForge. My download has just begun, has just ended. So once again, double click on the icon, management window appears. Under hostname, I type in the hostname of the user interface I want to connect to, and now I can directly provide the username and the password of the account I wish to connect to. So click login, and now on the new window that appears in front of my screen, on the left hand side I can browse through the contents of my local machine, while on the right hand side I can browse through the contents of my personal account on the remote user interface. To transfer data to the user interface, simply drag and drop and select copy. The same procedure, vice versa. To close the connection and exit, just close the window and click OK on the question that appears. So, this is it for our first screencast on grid computing. On behalf of the direct user support team operating in the context of the EGEE project, we would like to thank you.